Is NHL Sensorina worth the cost? You know what? Let's talk about that. Let's be honest, hockey is not cheap. An extra ice time can cost over $150 an hour, and hockey camps cost hundreds. With NHL Sensorina, you're getting access to hundreds of drills and training plans starting at $33 a month, where you can practice on a schedule that works for you. And new content is constantly added to the game. From new arenas to practice in, weekly challenges with their season mode, and new drills like the recently released USA Hockey training plans. This is such a great training tool for any hockey player or goalie. While hockey is definitely expensive, this is just over $1 a day. So, what are you waiting for? Level up your off-ice hockey training with NHL Sensorina.
And remember, gang, for listeners of Our Kids Play Hockey programming, we're offering $50 off an annual plan. Just head over to hockey.sensorina.com and use the code HockeyNeverStops at checkout. Again, that's hockey.sensorina.com. Use our code HockeyNeverStops at checkout and take your child's off-ice training to a new reality with NHL Sensorina 25. Now, let's get you into this episode on the Our Kids Play Hockey Network.
Friends and family around the world, thank you so much for joining us. You are listening, watching, maybe on YouTube, Our Kids Play Hockey, and I'm joined by my fabulous line mates today, Mike Benelli and Lee Elias. Now, wait a minute, time out, you're saying. Why isn't Lee doing the introduction? Because that's the traditional way we introduce our fabulous show. But here's the deal. Lee's voice has been strained. You know, he's a hockey coach. You can relate to that, all you coaches. Sometimes that happens. You strain your voice, right? Especially when you're yelling, projecting so much, which is what a good hockey coach does. So it happens from time to time. So he's joining us. You see him there in the corner, right? What is our topic today? I'm going to pass it to Lee because he's got a great story. And it's going to resonate with all of you. I guarantee it. Lee, tag you're it.
Thank you, my friend. Fantastic. Let's give a round of applause, Mike. That was a fantastic open. We needed the energy brought today, and I can't bring it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to go now.
Yeah, we're ready. That was a fantastic open. Yes, and every coach listening to this is nodding. Of like, oh, I know exactly that voice. Yeah, good news, coaches. We won the game. So that's all you need to know.
Yay!
So my kid had a showcase this past weekend. So 4 games, lots of games, right? And as I was walking into the rink on Sunday morning, I encountered something that shouldn't shock me anymore, but it still does. I walk in, and there are parents surrounding the glass, and they are I'm not joking here, and I won't say where they're from. They are cursing at the ref in front of the 10-year-old kids that I'm coaching. And I'm like, they're not holding back. It's not a little bit. It was F this, you're this, make the call. The ref is a 16-year-old young lady, right? And then as I'm walking, I hear them yelling at their own kids in the same way. I heard a parent say to their kid, who is the goalie, we might as well replace you with a rubber tire. It would make more saves. This isn't a game. And no shame whatsoever. Yeah. And I'm sure they're beating their chests going, yeah, man, we're doing this right. This is who we are. And I'm walking into the locker room after they're cursing. And I said, hey, guys, I got 10-year-olds here. Like, what are you doing? Also noticing that they're yelling at 10-year-olds on the ice, by the way, because it's the same showcase. And I'm just, what do we do when we see that? And that's going to be the topic today, because we all encounter it. All right. Now, I will say this too to our audience. 80 to 90% hockey interactions with other teams are fine. They're fine. Okay. This is not the macro, but man, it is jarring when you walk in and you see this unbelievably inappropriate behavior from a hockey level, from a parenting level, from a decency level, right? It's jarring. So the topic today is going to be when you see that, when you experience it in the stands, when you're, Mike, for you and me, this has happened too. I'll be on the bench in a Mike game where we don't keep score, and the parents of the other team are just going nuts. It's like, what are we doing here? Yeah. So I want to discuss what to do today when you see that type of behavior.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more about the behavior, and shame on those parents. Shame
on
you.
Horrible.
Going back to when my kids were 10 years old, I saw it. It happened. It was ugly. And then I'm thinking, all right, what do we do as a group to try and lessen that from happening? It's tough to come up with solutions because these parents that are like that, you're not going to change them. They're hard-headed, they're stubborn, they think they're right, everybody else is wrong. It's a really difficult situation to be in. It's tense, it's ugly. It makes you feel embarrassed and ashamed if they're parents on your team. Um, and then you're thinking, okay, another round of education is going to help change their behavior. And it doesn't.
No.
And they are still that way. And I think, sadly, it's even gotten worse. So I don't know what the solution is. I do not know how to address this. Mike, you've got a lot more experience dealing with these kind of parents. I failed. I'm going to tell you right now, I couldn't come up with anything that would make it better for these parents who are like that. They're etched in stone, nasty people. They're few, thank goodness, as Lee said. It doesn't happen often, but once in a while, you get them on your team or you see them on the other team and you don't know what to do. How do you handle it? It's a great question.
Yeah, I think when you step back too and you hear both Lee's weekend and your experience, what happens is it really comes down to education and culture. And I think what happens is like I even cringe when Lee says, "Oh, we were at a showcase this weekend with 10-year-olds." Like to me, like why are we doing showcases at any level really in October and November? What the hell is a showcase anyway? I still have not been able to define what the showcase is. I understand what I understand what the showcase is as a hockey parent, but I don't understand what the reasoning of, like, to me, just schedule 4 games over the weekend and control your life. Like, to me, that's just to me. Like, I'm a simple person. If I got to go to a place, give me 4 games. Now, again, I know it's all about money and it's all about, rankings and I guess in a lot of ways it's easy for managers to say, well, just plug the kids into a showcase. I don't have to schedule the other 4 games. I just
exactly
go.
it.
I get it. But
It's easier. Yeah. It's
I don't know.
easier 'cause it's all set up.
I personally don't. I don't agree that it's easier. We can have another episode on that. I think it's actually harder because of moving kids into hotels, moving kids into who's going to have dinner, who's going to do the breakfast, who's going to, what time, do we even know what time our game is on Sunday afternoon? Do I have to get another hotel room? Do I have to get another flight?
Is 4 games in 2 days an effective way of looking at teams?
Right.
It's an ineffective way of looking at teams.
Yeah.
It's an ineffective way of looking at development. It's an ineffective way of looking at culture.
Yeah.
So now let's go back to Christy's question, right? So education and culture. And I think more so than not, it is stemmed from the head. You very rarely see a mild-mannered, low-key coach with out-of-control parents.
That's very true.
So when you see a coach that is
Mhm.
over the top,
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about the officials and the abuse of officials and why, if we want good officials, we probably shouldn't bash the officials we have. But so the person who bashes the officials, the players bash the officials, the players bash the players, the parents then protect their kids, the parents protecting their kids protect their kids, and now we have this breakdown in society at a sporting event for children. So
Right.
for me, it's culture and education, and I think culture comes first because then education can be part of the culture. Like, so I think if your culture is built that these are unacceptable behaviors, and guess who's going to model those behaviors? It's going to be our head coaches first. Now it's much easier that it rolls down the line to the player, to the parent, to the grandparent, to the drunk uncle that shows up on a weekend that says, "Oh, I can't believe that kid got hit in the head," and then he's starting to fight with. Listen, I had a great story, that kind of rivals Lee's. So I was at a game where a parent was fighting another parent, like mentally, physically, verbally abusing. And then they found out they were parents of the kids on the same team.
Yeah.
So it was like, and then they're like, oh crap! I can't believe, like it turns into like you're fighting, you're both yelling and screaming about a play, and you're both on the same team. You don't even know this,
Right?
So to me, there's so many things wrong with it.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to, let's go back to buyer beware when you select your program.
Sure.
When you are a head coach and an organizer, build a culture that allows you to fight those things. But if your
Yeah.
coaching staff and your organizers don't model those behaviors,
Yeah.
then to your point, Christy, you are just swimming upstream.
Right. Yeah. And that really is important for the head coach to make it clear to everybody on that team, parents included, kids, parents. If this kind of behavior, if you've got, if you've got an attitude problem, leave it at the door. And if it comes into the rink, you're gone. You're out. I wish they'd be stricter with this, and I would love to see even volunteers. And I know it's hard to find volunteers in the rink, just in the stands when they start hearing stuff bubble up. Parents yelling at the refs. What those parents did to that ref, that's just awful.
Yeah.
Somebody should come up to them and say, you know what? We don't tolerate that here. Bye. You're out of here. Go. Leave.
Right. But the person
Go
saying
out.
we don't tolerate that here can't be the person that was just kicked out of the game. So like I think so you got to, and again, this is a story as old as youth sports, right? When I was a hockey director, my first year as a hockey director, 1993, I think it was. We used to hand out playing card size, index cards, laminated. And at that time, you had to laminate them with a hairdryer.
Sure.
Laminate.
I remember.
So laminated cards with just 3 keywords on it, and all you had to do as a parent of a crazy parent was hand them the card, and they had to read like, "I'm a youth hockey parent. This is a youth hockey game. Stay calm."
Yeah,
and that's all.
That's great.
And it did. I think we used to use this as like you didn't have to yell at the parent. You have to confront the parent. You could be like, "Hey, Lee,
you've been carded.
You've been carded. Red card.
Lee, just take a deep breath.
The
Walk
red
outside.
card should be red."
You're right, but take a deep breath. Walk outside. Diffuse the situation. The craziest thing I find, when you're in the hockey world, for the most part, these are high functioning, high intelligent people. Like these are people, if you can afford to play hockey and you can afford to have your own business, work for a hedge fund, be a top business professional, you have to have some sense of control.
Right.
You would think.
And when you get into these events, and again, it's not hockey, it's not bashing hockey. I see it in lacrosse, I see it in soccer. That's why they have silent Sundays, right, in soccer now, right? Because they're forcing parents to model a different behavior. Mm-hmm. But it all starts, I think, with the head of your organization and the culture that you establish in your organization. If you're listening to this now and it's December, good luck. You're done. Wait till next year.
Well, I will add
in. A long season.
I will add in here a few things that the parents of this team have a reputation. So like, and again, I don't want to give anything away. Anybody in my area will probably know who I'm talking about, but there's a reputation at this rink for this type of parenting, for this type of outrageous behavior. Even the hockey development, which isn't half bad, is sometimes there's physicality at the younger ages that shouldn't be there. And we kind of all know they're being told to do it. So it is a culture. It's a culture issue with this rink. And I'll tell you this too, Christy, to your point, the rink manager came in, I'm told, and said to these parents, "I will shut the lights off and end the game."
Good. That's what they need.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of an effect it had because the game ended, they got killed. But it was like so. I wanted to say this too because Christy, you did ask a question before about like how do we change this, and I think there's a really important element here we have to talk about. So these parents are going crazy. I'm watching them. I'm watching their kids on the ice, looking at them, and I'm just thinking about these kids. I feel so bad for these kids. Because not only are they experiencing all the emotions as a kid, but they're going to turn out to be like that in the future because they're being taught that. So I walk into my locker room, and the first thing I hear, and this is, I think, a big part of this episode. First thing I hear is one of my players repeat the curse words verbatim that this woman had said outside the locker room. And it's like I kind of put my hand on my head. And I'm thinking like, you can't say that. So I kind of joked with this kid. I said, "Hey man, I'm standing right here." Right. And then I looked in the room and I could see they were kind of snickering and this was affecting them, not in a bad way. They thought it was funny, but I said, I sat them down for a minute, just quickly. And this is the key. We got to focus on the kids. And I said, hey guys, look, that person is wrong out there for the way that she's treating the ref and those kids. It's disrespectful. And I said just like this, to their own kids, to the ref, and to the game of hockey. And I said, we will respect the game of hockey in this locker room. So I said, I know it's funny to you at this point. You don't hear people doing that. But I said, do you see how ridiculous she looks right now? You don't want to grow up to be that way. And it's just like, I'm just trying to plant the seed to them, right? I'm not their parent. I'm not trying to be in that moment. I'm just trying to explain to them, we don't behave that way for a reason. You will respect the game. You will respect the ref. The ref is always, I've never had a ref make a call against my team where I agreed with the call. I'm, jokingly, right? So I think that the answer is, as adults, we love to commiserate. And yeah, I went right out to the parents on our team. I was like, are you watching this? Are you seeing this? But then my mind turned of like, this is a teaching moment for the kids. And we got to do it. And again, for the parents of the kids on that team, your kids, if you keep this up, they are all burning out by 16. All of them.
Yeah.
All right?
And a lot of them are quitting at age 13, as we've seen the studies show.
They're going to totally justify it. Like, well, this is what it was like when I was a kid. Well, you weren't doing showcases when you were a kid. All right. You weren't playing year round when you were a kid. All right. And not to mention, and I think this is my biggest point, you're going to create a terrible human being. You know why? Because you are a terrible human being the way you're doing this. And it's like, that's not what hockey's for.
Yeah.
So I would love to have a conducive conversation with those parents and try and educate them, Mike, as we're talking about. It's not going to happen. They're not going to change. And again, it's not my job to change them. It's my job to influence the kids that I coach. So I think, Christy, that's kind of my answer is like, if you see that, your kids are seeing it too. You should have that quick 3-minute discussion of why that's not acceptable and how to be respectful in all walks of life. And you can be respectful and still be a hell of a competitor out there. Cursing and yelling at refs and your team does not make you compete harder. I have no data to support that.
Yeah. And I do think the head coach needs, and if it gets to the head coach, he or she needs to make it clear, we heard what you did.
They're probably
You
enabling
embarrassed our team. That you represent not just you and your kid, but our team. Now you're going to help us get a bad reputation. So now next showcase, they're going to get wind of that. Oh, they were the parents that were, nasty to the refs and belittling them. We don't really want you here. Okay. That reputation will follow you. And so really, I think having a coach that comes down hard on these parents, a whole team getting on these parents saying, look, this is not us. We say, you're out of here. You're done. Okay.
And I don't think it's as easy too as it might not be. I don't think it's as easy as saying this could happen overnight. Like it's like when it really does. It's in the fabric of your organization. So like you can't just say on November 2nd, hey, today we're changing. Like it's just hard to do that. Now it's also harder. It's not even anecdotal. I mean, just go look around the rinks every weekend. An out of control team has an out of control coach.
Yep.
And has out of control parents. There's no, and now what the extremes are of that out of controlness, maybe it's the eye rolls every time there's a penalty, every time the ref calls an offsides, every time the goalie gets snowed, every time, like every single time. I mean, there's look at the culture in football, right? There's a reason why in football there isn't a line brawl on every tackle,
right?
Because it's part of the game. It's like, okay, that's part of what we do. We tackle you. Like, is it going to hurt?
We tackle you.
Yes. Now, if I take my fingers and I stick them into your eyeball, then maybe there's going to be another level, right? But imagine in football, if every time a kid got hit, it turned into a brawl.
Yeah.
There'd be no game. And I'm watching games now where every time there's a play, maybe it's illegal. It could be illegal. But that's why we play the game, right? It's like you're playing the game, and there's going to be things that happen. Now, if you don't learn how to manage that, and as a parent, in the first period, if a ref makes a bad offsides call, the first period, 3 minutes in, and that ref hears 17 parents from your team screaming about the call, it's human nature. What are you going to do? We've had professional referees on this show. And what is Kerry Fraser? What does he say?
You
Of course
can't
I
beat the
hear.
refs. You can't beat the refs on the other team.
Of
Right.
course I hear that. Of course
Yeah.
that's going to affect me. Of course, as no matter what level of professionalism you have, you're going to be like, I just don't give the benefit of the doubt anymore. It just does. It's very hard to do that. Not that you want to get them back, but you're not going to get the gray. You're not going to get the like, oh, that could have been a penalty. Maybe not. And then what happens is it spirals into chaos because now both teams, because at some point the other team has to be like
Mike.
at some
Right.
point
And
your parents are now feeling like, oh my God, this can't just be going one way.
right. And hey, wake up, parents. All that nastiness that you're throwing at these refs, they're quitting. They're leaving
They
the
are
game
quitting.
because they're tired of you.
Left
And
and
guess
right.
what? Now we've got a ref shortage. And what happens when there's a ref shortage? Guess what? Your kids aren't going to play when you're on the schedule. Everything gets messed up. You're not going to play as many games. You're not going to be able to travel as much. Your kids aren't going to get the ice time that they want. Why is that? It goes back to your nasty behavior.
Yeah, and I'll add
And
on to
think
that.
about the consequences of what you're doing. Oh, so I'm yelling at this one ref. No, it resonates. And take a step back and look at the bigger picture of what your behavior is doing to these volunteer refs.
And I'll add on to this,
Ruin it.
Christy.
You're ruining the game.
We had of the 8 referees we had this weekend. Again, we're talking 10U AA. 2 of them were over 20. Okay, 2 of them. And this young lady that these parents were yelling at, I mean, I was jarred by this. I just haven't seen it this bad in a while. I don't know why I'm surprised. Like I said, this is kind of part of the culture of that organization. But obviously that young lady was reffing multiple games, so she had her game right after. And I went right up to her, not for any type of advantage or anything like that. And I just said, what I just saw done to you was completely unacceptable. And I just want you to know that I appreciate that you're here. And I said to her, if I have a problem with any of your calls today, which I may, I said, I'll just call you over and have a discussion of what I see. Because as I don't want to call myself an older coach, but as someone at my age, I also play a responsibility in assisting these young refs at getting better at their job. And I'm not going to do that by screaming at them. I do need to tell them, this is what I saw. This is why I think the call is incorrect. And Mike, to your point, they hear that too. They understand where I'm coming from. Like last night, here's another one. Talking about crappy parents. We had a power play. And power plays are a minute 30. And we look at the scoreboard at a stoppage, and the power play time is running, but the clock is not. So the play is stopped. For those of you who don't know, that is a choice that you have to make, that cannot just randomly happen, that the penalty clock keeps running. Okay? So like 30 seconds, 40 seconds pop off the clock, and we tell the ref, and the ref's young, so what are they going to do, right? So he tells the guy to hold the clock up. The guy holds it for 3 seconds. But it's like, what was that, right? So after the game, because we were very vocal about it. I wouldn't say we were yelling at the refs. We were just yelling to make them aware of the situation. And this is again, to help. I pulled both the refs after the game. Right? We ended up winning the game. But I pulled them across. I said, I want you guys to know we weren't yelling at you. We just saw something. And they were young. I said, sometimes parents will try and pull things like that. All right? And you've got to be aware that can happen in a game. And they actually shook my hand and thanked us. They said, well, we didn't know what to do in that moment. And I said, it's absolutely fine. It's again, it's a rarity, right, Mike? It doesn't happen all the time. But I said that this parents were trying to take advantage of you, not just us, right? They're hoping you're not watching that. So I think as coaches, how you interact with a referee, I encourage all of my players to shake their hand after the game, no matter what they think, whether they think that it happened on purpose or something else. I want them to know that you have to respect these people. The other thing is this, and Mike, I love your take on this. You have to look at the referee and you have to potentially move your standard of what you think the officiating should be based on their experience level. When I see a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old reffing the game, I don't expect every call to be perfect. In fact, I expect a lot of calls to be missed. And then how I vocalize that to my team is usually something, hey, look, they're letting you play. Or I'll say, look, this is hockey. And Mike, to your point about getting tackled, you got to keep going. The refs are not going to win or lose the game. We're in control. They may affect the game, but it's on us to play the game. And so, look, same thing in adult league, right? Like I have a very low bar for adult league officiating And it's like, sometimes my teammates will get slashed. And I'm like, you got a pad there, right? Like, let's keep going, right? It's just, but not to mention most 10-year power plays and penalty kills are worse than 5-on-5 anyway. But we play a role in assisting these referees to get better at their work. And we play a role in appreciating them and letting them know that. Last thing I'll say, I have yet to meet a kid referee that was a horrible person. I haven't met one that was just like a complete egomaniac loser that shouldn't be out there. They all want to be out there. In fact, Christy, one of them was like,
and they're
hey,
eager to learn.
Yeah, one of the kids like, I played AAA. I know who you are. Like, I
Right.
love yours. He was so excited to like meet me, and I was like flattered.
Absolutely.
So we play that role.
It's amazing to me, actually. So you think about it, like the level of ref you're getting is the level you're coaching.
Right.
Like, so if, and I said, I used to ref, as a hockey director and a young person, you have to do a lot of things, right? So a lot of times I'd have to ref on the weekends. You can't find refs. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can ref. How hard can it be? Reffing is easy in my eyes.
Right.
Communicate, banter, talk, but understand you are not in an arena with 18,000 people. You're in an arena with grandma and a kid on an iPad. Like, so
exactly.
you're there for these children, and you, whether you like it or not, you are responsible for the growth and development of everybody on the ice, which includes the officials. If you want great officials when your kids are 18, then don't drive them out of the game at 13.
Right.
Like,
that's a great point. Wow.
You want good officials, then stop about the officials. Like, because who's left? Lee, you make a great point. You know who's left at the end of the funnel in youth hockey refereeing? It's the bitter guy who's just like, I just want my $75.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm probably reffing 6 games on a Saturday morning. I have my gloves on because I'm freezing my butt off. And I have to listen to a bunch of 10-year-olds like go at me.
And their
parents. What do you think you're going to get from that? Like, what is the end result? What is your end result by yelling and screaming at a referee who's there for you, your kid? My son plays high school lacrosse. A year ago, I can't tell you how many games had to get canceled or postponed because they didn't have enough officials.
Exactly. Same thing in our
high school. This is high school. And then you see the same officials.
Yeah.
Right.
So high school officials don't listen to this podcast.
Right. And we actually did a news story on this because there was such a shortage of referees. It became news. Why are they? Do you know what the refs told us who quit? Because they couldn't take the parents anymore.
It's not worth it. It's not worth the aggravation. Like, it's not worth it.
Even though our hearts were good for the kids.
Right.
Yeah, I would love to do this for the kids. I'm tired of the abuse.
Well, forget about the kids. Like, I would even go so far. I would go even so far as, who cares about the kids? I want to make some money. It's not even worth that.
Right.
Like, it's not even worth a retired individual getting up on a Saturday and getting me. I love reffing. It's a great workout. It's a lot of fun. I'm in the game. I love to talk to the kids and the coaches, and
I bet you're good at it, Mike. I'm not.
I love it. I love it.
You're really good at it. Yeah.
I love it. If a coach says to me, "Ref, that was a worse call," and I'll be like, "Well, it was a bad call. You put your line out against that line. That was a terrible call. Like, you should have never done that."
Yeah.
And so we're having a conversation like, you're expecting me to ref at the same level as the ref you watched on Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada?
Who is a professional.
That's not who I am. And guess what? If that's who I was, I wouldn't be here repping you.
Repping your kids.
So I think if you want more, again, this, and I know we're getting off topic a little bit because it's in this, like, but it comes back down to, what's every guest on what's every pro guest on our show say? Be a good person.
Right.
That's it. So forget about talent. Forget about your ability. Forget about all this. Be a good person. And that goes into the stands. Are you going to get heated? Listen, I've seen so many games where I'm like, oh, God, that was a bad hit. Or, man, that was really so disrespectful. But it's just part of the game. If you can't handle that piece, then it's very difficult to be in sport. It just is.
Well, and going back to it, Mike, like, Listen, I don't think we're off target here. I think this all comes back to the same topic, which is like, what do we do? And you know what my favorite ref is right now is when I'm at a Mike game, or we'll just say like a beginner level hockey game, and I see the ref make a call and go right up to the kid and explain, this is why I made that call.
Yeah.
All right,
No doubt.
because they, you know, and again, you don't usually get that out of a 12-year-old ref. These are more experienced refs that they're teaching the game, and they're doing this while
Right.
the parents are, that was a horrible call, and then he goes up to the kid and says, like, this is why. And look, I still see that even at the higher levels sometimes. Again, double A, I've seen something happened. He explained, this is why I did that. Those are the best refs. If they're getting screamed at, right? You can apply this to coaching. You can apply it to anything. Why are they going to keep doing that? They're going to quit. And you know, I think the other thing, Mike and Christy, right? People don't understand how good professional referees are. Like
Right.
hockey is easily the hardest hardest sport to officiate. Everyone says that. And all of those refs at the NHL, by the way, they make more money than all of us. You know, they're professional referees or officials. So, you know, look, bringing this back though, to talk about how do we fix it, right? There's a common theme here, and it's educate the kids, educate the parents, educate the refs. And I think that, you know, if your kid's on the older half of youth hockey, not much is going to change. But where does the change start? From an organizational level, starts at Adams and Mites. I gave advice to a young coach the other day where he was talking in the locker room after a Mike game, and all the parents were getting their kids undressed. They were all doing things. And I'm like, you know, no one's paying attention here. So I told him, the next time you're in the locker room, I want you to tell the parents to please stop getting your kid undressed and let me have a couple minutes with the team. All right. And they did it. No problem. Right. Because you said it. You have to teach everyone involved that, okay, a coach is speaking. I need to be respectful. Parents, if you continue to get your kid undressed, you are teaching your kid that this doesn't matter. That what the coach is saying doesn't matter. Now, listen, if you got to get your kid to the next game, fine. Go to the coach and say, I got to get my kid to this next game. I've never seen a coach that just said, no, don't do it. Because the coach can then say, hey, Tommy's got to get to basketball. Okay. So he's going to get undressed. Everybody else sit and listen. Those 2 or 3 minutes with your coach after the game are pretty important time. And you're establishing this a little bit of a hierarchy that, hey, when coach speaks, we are respectful. Now, Mike, Christy, the parents that I saw this weekend, and you know, I wish I could say it's an isolated incident, but it's not. The coaches, like you said, Mike, the coach is exactly like the parents, screaming at the refs on the bench, screaming at the kids. I mean, it's a cultural problem. So if you want to change this within your organization, never assume you don't have those parents. Again, same coach I was talking to said, oh, I don't think we need the 24-hour rule with this team. And I said, you always need the 24-hour rule with every team. All right. Do not abandon that. That is one of you can't put it in after the season starts, right? It's got to be there from the start.
Yeah.
So I think part of that is culture from the organizational leaders having those rules, right? Of like, look, this is how to do this. The young coaches making sure that they expect that kind of respect from the parents, and then involving the parents and explaining to them at the start of the season, you know, this is how this is going to run. I'm not going to tolerate this behavior. Do not yell at the refs. Do not yell at the other parents, right? And look, if you have to, it can affect ice time, all right? Which is the last thing. You do not want to do that. But if a parent's not listening, coach, you might have to say, like, I don't think I can have your kid on the bench if you're not going to respond to what I'm saying.
And they'll pay attention there.
They'll curse at you first, but then they'll pay attention.
It's so disheartening, too, Lee, as you're sharing this story. And I know locally the hockey season hasn't even started. Has it started where you are?
Oh, big time. Yeah. We're fully into it.
We're in playoffs down here.
Okay. Sorry.
No, so we're recording this in mid to late October. We're well past the quarter mark here. Yeah, so this is they've been doing it all season.
Parents have already had all the sensitivity training and everything.
I don't think they get that at all. I don't think the parents get any of it.
Now, when back in the day, we used to have to go to classes where they would show video and we'd have discussions and we'd have
Christy, these parents were shouting stuff so freely.
Wow.
I mean, it was disgusting. I mean, I have no problem calling that out. And I said something to them then. It was disgusting. There was absolutely no control. Again, yelling at the refs and their own kids. It was disgusting.
That's where you need a rink manager to come and say you're out of here. You're
Yeah.
gone.
I mean, it was
And those,
deplorable.
I love the idea of the red cards that Mike
I
was
do too.
talking about. I
Yeah.
think bring them back, 3 cards, you're out, you're done, bye.
Yeah.
Or even develop an app where it would blink on their
Something.
phones if they're bing, you just got
Well,
carded.
what I wish is that the referee, and again, they were young, but I wish the referee would have blown the whistle
Tossed them
and
out.
well, just maybe open the door or something and said, if you cannot control yourself, I
Yeah.
will end this game. You will forfeit the rest of this game.
Yeah.
They will shut up right
I-
away.
Yeah, I love when refs do that. I've seen it probably about a dozen times where parents have been kicked out of the ring because of what they're saying, what they're
Yeah.
doing. Just you're gone. You points to them out of here,
Yeah.
and they gotta leave.
And
It's great.
I want to say too, it's not even so much the cursing. Like kids are going to hear that. I don't want anybody to get lost on that. It was the method in which the message was being delivered. It was just
Mhm.
horrible. It
Yeah.
was disrespectful in every way.
It's not the cursing so much for me. It's the inability to understand you've lost control.
Right.
Like, so to me, like I've always had this standard with hockey parents. If you resort to swearing at me in a conversation, then the conversation ends. Like now there's just no
we're
control.
done. We're done here.
Good.
If it becomes an F-bomb session,
Yeah.
then okay, well then let's just because I don't, again, I don't care about the 24-hour rule so much, as long it's just up there to know your audience.
Sure.
But if you're gonna come at me swearing at me, then the conversation ends, and
Yeah.
we move
Yeah.
on, and we have another conversation at a later date. Now, if you want to talk to me like a human being, and I think it's the same way, but I think ultimately, a couple of strategies you can use as an organization too is, like, for me, when I used to do the coaching education program, there wasn't an educational session we ever had that didn't include a 45-minute speech from the head referee in our region.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
our head referee would be there with all these level 1 and 2 coaches, and have a conversation about the fact that we're all human beings and we're all here to help the sport, and we're all here to, accomplish a goal, and is that to have a safe environment for a 60-minute game. If we can do all that, then at least now we have some kind of level playing field, right?
Right.
I think the other piece then is, I would even go so far as to have, at the beginning of the year, you give the ref $45 like a normal game session, have them come in and be at your practice and say, this is what is illegal and this is what's legal. This is what you're going to get called for every time. When you touch a player's numbers on their back, you are going to get a call no matter what. There is no gray area. You're going to get a call. And when you start having these conversations with players that understand the rules of the game are there to protect them, and that sometimes there's going to be situations where, the rules aren't followed, that's where a penalty occurs. And then that's why, because here's the thing I've never understood. Like, how do you get out of your mind crazy after a penalty for something that happened now in the past? Like, there's nothing you can do. You can't yell about it and it's not going to happen. It just happened. So let's worry about, like, to me, what is that going to change? I mean, have you ever seen a ref turn around and be like, oh my God, because of the yelling, now it's even a worse penalty, I think I got to give them even more minutes? It doesn't happen.
Well, if I can, Mike, so you're actually leading into something a little deeper here. None of the problems we're discussing are rooted in hockey. They're rooted in the person, right? And so many people live outside the present moment. They live in the past. They live in the future, where you have absolutely no control over those events. And people will say, well, I have to worry about these things. I have to talk about, I have to reminisce. No, you don't. That is a choice. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you don't reflect on your past or look to the future. I think there's a lot of enjoyment and learning that comes from that, but your life is happening right now. And you are so out of the present moment when you do these things that you are really teaching the kids, the other parent, everybody, the wrong way to do it. The other thing too, I want to mention this too. Everybody listening should note that I didn't comment on whether the refs were doing a good or bad job. These parents, follow me here, may have been very warranted in their criticism. All right. I actually acknowledge that. Like I experienced the refs. They weren't perfect, but it's like, that's not the point. And I think that that's what these parents, if I had them on right now, they'd say, well, did you watch that? Did you see how bad they were? And I could say, like, yeah, I did. And it still doesn't warrant your behavior.
Right. Warrants the criticism maybe, but not the behavior.
Sure.
Well, listen, I was I was
Yeah.
just at a game where the refereeing was atrocious, and clearly the referees did not like our team. They just didn't like the team I was watching.
And that does happen, parents. It happens.
Yeah,
It
People
does
think, oh,
happen,
they're
and they're like,
fair and balanced. No, they're not.
but
Not
it happened.
always.
This team doesn't just hatched out of an egg yesterday. They've been playing for months, so it's
Right.
like
What a great
of course,
metaphor.
but it's like I don't like your team. You've never even seen my team. No,
Yeah.
but I've been with your coaches and I've seen this team before.
They're people too.
So they're going into the game. I'm telling you right now, take it from a referee. You sit in the locker room, and you're looking at your schedule, and going, "Oh crap, I got this group.
They remember.
This is going to be a long night. Like this is going to be a long day for me."
Yeah.
And don't now they're on edge already. So I think thinking about so I had a parent, because my parents used to hate me from the side of like, "Oh, well, don't you think of this? And can't you believe that?" I go, "Well, I mean, that was a penalty. We did trip the kid. I don't know what to tell you." Or what that wasn't hitting from behind. I'm like, oh, I'm not. Yes, was it a bad call? But I don't know. Wouldn't you want that call against for our kids? You'd want that same call, touching the goalie in the crease. I'd probably want us to have that call. So just let's look at it from a rational standpoint.
Yeah.
And again, and then the best I love is the parents that are going crazy about like a non-goal that went off the post or went in the net, and they think it went in the net. Go, what are you going to go? Going to go to live bar and do an instant replay? It's over. The game.
I've seen parents do that. I've seen parents run over with their phone.
How many times?
Never has it changed. Never
lean over the glass with their phone, saying, "Look, this was a goal." And then how many times did the referee say, "Oh shit, yeah, you know what? It is a goal. Let's stop the whole game. Let's go back to the 10-minute and 52-second mark, and we'll restart the game." It doesn't happen. This is a youth hockey game that, of course, referees are going to miss the play. Now, to Lee's point, you could say, well, my God, this referee, he just skates the blue lines. Blue line to blue line. Blue line to blue line. Is that a good official? No. But the more officials we keep in the game, the easier it is to get rid of the crappy ones. But when there's no officials left, you get what you get and you don't get upset. It's a very simple. It's just, you get it.
There you go,
That's what you're
people.
getting.
Yeah, you wouldn't go to a playground and yell at the kids on the monkey bars. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing.
Oh, I've seen that happen.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
I believe it.
Yeah, you stink at the monkey bars. That kid is probably the worst monkey bar swinger I've seen. Now you can yell about a kid that hogs. You can yell about a kid that hogs the playground. You can yell about a kid that hogs the swing, right? And like, oh my God, this kid hasn't been off the swing in 15 minutes, and my kid, maybe you can go and you see it, right? Apparently, like, hey, my son hasn't been on the swing in 15 minutes. Who the hell are you?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I'm just.
He was here first. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one swing here. I'm just asking.
It's got your name on it. Swing's got your name on it. Okay.
I get it. But we're in a different area. But I think it's just.
Yes, you are.
We don't have any Minnesota nice people here. But I think it's like, if we could just go back to the stands and you're thinking about the parent and you're just watching and again, Christy, it's so hard to say something like because then you're the one in the middle of the argument.
And they might get aggressive with you. I think that's the apprehension.
That has happened, as Mike.
Oh, I got pointed right in my face the other day. Like, what? You ever coach? Have you ever been in that situation? I'm like, no, I don't know.
No, but I do have a top podcast. You should listen to it.
No, but I know two people that have this situation every weekend. Right. But I think it's like, but to hear, like I said, this has nothing, to your point, Lee, this has nothing to do with the sport.
Nothing. No.
It's
know why? I know that, Mike, because none of them will remember the game or the score in 3 weeks.
Yeah. But I will remember this. There is a fight right behind me with two parents. Were they on the same team? No, they weren't on the same team. And it was a fist fight, and I was right in front of them. I remember that I had to duck.
Well, hey,
the only reason I don't get involved is because I dread being on Live Barn. I just dread being on Instagram.
Well, let me tell you guys
being dragged across the stands.
I told a story from today. Let me tell you a story from a long time ago, right? When I was 14 years old, 15 years old, where there is no Live Barn back then, Mike, and I saw a parent from my team get into a fist fight with a parent on another team on the ice after the game.
Nice.
And the reason I'm bringing this up, the situation doesn't matter. What I remember, and this is I think important because this is what a child remembers. I remember being jarred by it, not in a good way. I remember being told that was wrong and feeling that it was wrong. And I also remember this parent, and God bless him, came in front of the team the next day, essentially crying and apologized to all of us that he had done that. it was not fun. It was not a good moment. Nobody walked away from that thinking, oh, he's so cool for throwing hands, right? At that age, it didn't play out the way I think anybody thought it was, because your ego took over. You weren't in the present moment, and you did something stupid, and you looked stupid, right? Now, I give him all the credit in the world, this parent, for apologizing the next day. I mean, he clearly understood that he had made a mistake and that it's not something he ever wanted to do, but he's got to live with that forever. So it's just, parents, you're not having the effect that you think you're having when you do things like this. All right. In fact, it's all about you in those moments. There's nothing to do with the kids or the game. You're not pushing your kid. You're being an a-hole, and you're showing everybody that you're being an a-hole. All right. And then again, if you're going to approach another parent, because I do think personally it is warranted sometimes, somebody does have to say something. All right. First off, and I got to put this out here. Ever hear anything racist or sexist, you got to say something.
Oh,
Do not allow that to slide. That stuff won't stop unless you do say something. All right. It ain't cool. It's not fun. There's no place for that in the game. I really mean
it's
that.
hard though, Lee. Lee, think
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. It's so hard to. I mean, there has to be other strategies, right? Because it's so hard in a game. Everyone's heated, and because I've heard. I mean, there's a reason why I go sit in the corner.
Yeah.
By myself.
Yeah, I can see
with
you
a hot cup of coffee and just keep my mouth shut and put my head down.
Yeah.
Or just stay home and watch it on Live Barn, is because I know, because it's hard, and it's not hard to control yourself. It's hard to stand up and say something that was
Mike, I'm going to tell you this right now.
Oh.
It is really hard, and I'm going to say that depending on what is said, most of the times I won't say anything. All right, I think when someone's going crazy, I think it speaks for itself. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But if I ever, and look, it took me a long time to get here, but if I ever hear something racist or I ever hear something sexist, I've gotten myself to a point where I don't yell or anything, but I just say like, hey, that's really inappropriate for the rink. And they might snap back at me, but you know what? I've never heard anybody say it again after that. They heard me. But my belief is this, that what's the right word here? My nerves in that situation don't trump the right thing to do. All right. Now, look, I'll be fully admitted here. Like, I'm in an interracial marriage, so this is a little bit of a soft spot for me. My kids are interracial. So as a father, who the hell am I if I don't say something? But my point is, I don't think you need those qualifications to say that's wrong. Okay. Yeah. Now, with that said, parents are cursing. They're going nuts. It's not, let's just say it's not racial. It's not sexist or that. If they're cursing in front of my kid, I have every right to be like, hey, man, like I got 10-year-olds here. And that's how I said it yesterday. All right. And you know exactly what they said. I don't give a about your kids. And you know what? But they didn't say anything again near the kids. Like they heard me. All right. And my kids saw me do that, which I think is important too. So, Mike, to your point, I'd say 8 to 9 out of 10 times. Yeah. Don't say anything. It's not worth the confrontation, but each one of us individually, and I mean that, you have to decide what's the line for you. And I want to reiterate, Mike, I'm never aggressive in those confrontations. Like I don't go at them like you're an a-hole, you're wrong. I just go, hey, it's really not appropriate to say that here. I'll say it, my kid is interracial. All right. He's on the ice. And I don't appreciate that. I'll tell you right now, most people aren't stupid enough to keep going because you're going to get yourself kicked out of the rink if you do something like that. That's not a hard one for people to do it. But Mike, I completely understand what you're saying, but I just can't stand by with that.
I think it's all the context of where you're at. Like when you're at these showcases now, I mean, people are basically popping open the bottles at 7:30 in the morning on the tailgate.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're drunk by the time they get into the rink at 10 o'clock. So I think it's like, okay, well, if you're going, again, that goes back to culture and education and what are we doing as a youth hockey world, right? Where you can go to a quote unquote showcase that's supposed to be, centered around your kids getting exposure, and you're getting all lit up in the parking lot, before your game, or you're stumbling out of the bar. And then that's because 90% of the time, that's why these confrontations happen. I mean, these aren't sober people. They aren't. These are, or they're inherently racist, or they're inherently sexist, or they're inherently like have no filter. So again, so it all comes down to how are you selecting your team? I just did a program with a team, with the ends and the butts, right? Are you an end or are you a butt? Do you have a lot of ends and how you're going to accomplish what you do, or is it but? And sometimes you have to do that as a coach picking your team. Like, oh, I love this kid, but his parents, the dad, the mom, eesh. Or the ends, right? Oh, mom's great. She does all the scheduling. Dad, awesome. Brings Gatorade every game. And this, and that, and this. Like, you need to establish, or you will get what you select. Right. And if that's the case, then you need to really, really do a hit job on creating a culture that accepts not being aggressive and yelling and screaming. Like, we all want to be energized at a game. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But then there has to be somewhere that the line of where that is going has to be pretty clear and defined.
Yeah.
Then you have to back it up. Because
Yeah,
once you allow September to roll and October to roll, you'll start to wonder why half your team is not returning the following year.
Well, yeah.
And half the team you don't want to return the following year. So it's like this whole thing. But again, it comes down to the person who's spearheading the program. 95% of the time, you can dictate that culture. You can.
Right. I agree with you.
Way at the top, the organization too, not just the
who you hiring? Who you hiring to represent?
Exactly.
The children.
Well, I'm going to say it again too. That Mike, I agree with what you're saying. And look, every individual person listening to this, your moral standards are your moral standards. I'm not trying to tell you what you should or should not believe. Okay, that's not for me to do. But I will reiterate this: that when I do these things or I say something, it has very, very little to do with the person I'm talking to, and more to do that I know these kids are watching me, right? And it's not that I feel like I have a personal responsibility to tell you to stop doing it. It's I need my son and my daughter to know that I have their back in those situations. I have to have them, and I want their teammates to see it too. And again, hey, that's not appropriate. Now they know I stand up for them, right? And that's the lesson I want them to learn, right? Look, there's times you can't do that, all right? Now, Mike, with your point, this really, again, it's got to start from the top down, right? It's one thing when I do it, when the organization does say we don't stand for this, right? That's very powerful, right? In the parents. And I'm going to say this one more time because, again, we're talking about the dark side of hockey here. Far more good parents than bad parents.
Absolutely.
Far more. I mean, way more. We're talking 98% of parents are fine.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
And I do want to shout out all those parents that are so positive all the time and pushing their kids to do better, and that they're saying the right messages. And I think that kind of almost rounding this out, that might be the best way to combat this is the positive has to outweigh the negative.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's strength in numbers. And as a veteran hockey mom, I can tell you over the years, and I'm talking 20 years of hockey, right?
Yeah.
Majority, very positive experiences. But those bad experiences stick out in my mind still to this day.
Right.
It's hard to forget them, unfortunately. They happen. But there is a way I think you can police yourselves as a group and come to their strength in numbers and say to you, and I encourage you to read this month's, it's in October, article of USA Hockey Magazine, my column, which is entitled, Let's Aspire to Do No Harm. And that's the vow you ought to take at the beginning of the season. Do no harm.
Yeah.
Be positive.
We should have led with that.
Why not get a nice bow?
Yeah,
on our,
it's a great bow. It's a great bow. No, I love it when the articles post.
Yeah,
but I love that, Christy, because it's true. Is that don't forget to embrace the good families. And like I said, I'm very blessed this season. I've been blessed most seasons, but we just have such a great group of parents with this team right now that I'm coaching on. I mean, it's a joy, regardless of the result, to be with this group. And that's what I want to hold on to long term. I want to remember those seasons, not these idiot parents that I saw yesterday. And you guys are idiots. I hope you're listening, but you're not.
Good.
I got to say,
I hope they're too.
Yeah. And so, look, to those of you listening, let's just close it on this, and we'll get go around the horn.
I mean, I get to say the goodbye.
I'm going to give you the goodbye.
But I did the open.
I'm going to give you the close. Trust me. I'm happy in this flow state of where I'm at here. This Optimus Prime. This is what I'll say. My final word before I toss it to you, Mike, and then we'll throw it to Christy for the close. The negative parents, the dark parents, if you want to call them that, They don't define.
Dark side.
Yeah, they don't define the culture of this sport. There is far more good that comes out of this sport. And if you listen to this show, and so many people do, we are so flattered by that. You're not those parents. All right. There's just no way you listen to this show and you're going back to the rink and cursing at your own kids. And as Christy said, there is strength in numbers. The fact that this show constantly ranks in the top 10 hockey podcasts and it won awards and has the audience size that it has it comforts me. It should comfort you out there that we have the strength in numbers. You're doing a great job. You love your kid if you listen to this show. I mean, we all do. All right. But you're trying to do the best you can. So I just want to give the final shout out on the solution is to you, the listeners, because you're looking for that further conversation. That's the key. You want to change anything? You got to talk about it, discuss it, right? And go back and forth with us. All right. I'm saucing the puck over to Mike.
Before we close it out, Mike, any final thoughts?
Listen, I just think when you finish listening to this episode and you're a manager or a coach or an influencer on your team, come up with your own strategies to combat this and implement it, and then get back to us and let us know it didn't work. But I just try to put yourself in a situation that just say I tried, and here's what I'd like to do, and just implement very simple things to help sway the culture of the kids on your team, and the attitude and the aggression in the stands. And I just think anything you can do is going to be a positive outlook. And I think to Lee's point, go out of your way to thank those referees that show up to your game,
please,
and get into a great habit. That's a habit, right? Just get into a habit of saying, "Hey, ref, thanks so much for showing up."
You and the kids,
right? And it's not too late to develop those new habits, even if you're mid-season, because that's when you'll be listening. We're looking at December, right? It's not too late to turn things around. All right. On behalf of Lee Elias, Mike Pinelli, I'm Christy Casciano. Thank you so much for listening. That'll do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Skate on.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.